At 2:03 a.m., my phone rang, and the moment I saw my daughter's name on the screen, I knew something was wrong. She never called me that late unless she was scared. I answered immediately, but for 3 seconds there was only silence. Then I heard her crying. "Dad, please come get me," she whispered. "I need to leave." Right now, my heart dropped. "Where are you? What happened?" Before she could answer, a woman's voice came from the background. "She's not going anywhere." It was her mother-in-law, Linda. I could hear the anger in her voice. "This is my house, and she has no right to walk out in the middle of the night like some victim." My daughter started crying harder. "Dad," she locked the door. "She took my phone earlier and she won't let me leave." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My hands were shaking, not because I was afraid of Linda, but because I realized my daughter had been suffering alone and hiding it from me. I had always believed my daughter's marriage was difficult but normal. She told me everything was fine whenever I asked. She smiled during our calls. She said she was just busy, and she always changed the subject when I asked about her husband and his family. But that night, I heard the truth in her voice. Fear. I grabbed my jacket and my keys. "I'm coming," I said. Linda heard me and laughed. "You think you can just show up here and take her away? You don't understand how things work anymore." That sentence stayed in my mind because Linda was right about one thing. I didn't understand how far she had gone. When I reached their house, the front lights were on, but everything was strangely quiet. I walked to the door and knocked. "Open the door, Linda." A few seconds passed. Then she opened it halfway and stood there like she was the owner of my daughter's life. "You're making a mistake coming here," she said. Behind her, I saw my daughter standing in the hallway with tears on her face. She looked tired, scared, and completely broken. I stepped forward, but Linda blocked the entrance. "She is my daughter-in-law," she said coldly. "She belongs in this family." I looked at my daughter and asked, "Did you call me because you want to leave?" She didn't even hesitate. "Yes, Dad." That was all I needed to hear. Linda smiled like she had already won. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she said. "I can ruin your name, your job, and your family before anyone believes you." What she didn't know was that I had spent the last 6 months quietly collecting proof about what was happening inside that house. I wasn't just a worried father who showed up in the middle of the night. I was the person who had already started uncovering the truth. And the next morning, Linda was going to discover that the one person she thought she could control had been watching everything from the shadows. But before I could get my daughter out, Linda made one phone call that changed everything. The phone call Linda made lasted less than a minute, but the look on her face told me she believed she had just won. She put the phone down and crossed her arms. "Go ahead," she said. "Try to take her. You'll regret it." My daughter looked at me with confusion. "Dad, what did she do?" I didn't answer right away because I saw something on Linda's face that I had seen before. It was the confidence of someone who thought they had already controlled the ending. A few minutes later, a black SUV stopped in front of the house. My daughter's face went pale. "Dad, that's Mark's lawyer." Mark was my daughter's husband, the man who never answered my calls, the man who always said he was too busy to visit, the man who let his mother make every decision in their marriage. The lawyer stepped out holding a folder and walked toward. It was like this was a planned meeting. "Mr. Carter," he said calmly, "you need to leave this property immediately." I looked at him. "My daughter called me for help, and you're telling me to leave?" He opened the folder. "According to these documents, your daughter has been experiencing emotional problems and has become unstable. The family is concerned she may make dangerous decisions." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They weren't just trying to keep her inside. They were building a story that made her look like the problem. My daughter started shaking. "That's a lie," she said. "I never said any of those things." Linda interrupted with a fake worried expression. "Sweetheart, we are only trying to protect you. You don't realize how confused you have become." That was the moment I understood their plan. They weren't fighting to keep my daughter in the house. They were trying to make sure nobody believed her. The lawyer handed me another paper. This is a notice that you are not allowed to interfere in their family matters. I looked at the paper, then at Linda. You planned all of this? She smiled. You should have stayed out of it. For years, I had worked 2 jobs to give my daughter a better life. I had fixed broken machines, worked overnight shifts, and came home exhausted just to make sure she never felt alone. But standing there, watching someone try to steal her voice from her, I felt something change inside me. I was no longer just a father asking questions. I was someone searching for answers. I took out my phone. Linda's smile disappeared for a second. What are you doing? I pressed a button and played a recording. Her own voice filled the hallway. She has no one here. Once we convince everyone she's unstable, nobody will believe her. The color left Linda's face. The lawyer looked shocked. My daughter covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks, because she finally heard what I had discovered weeks earlier. The truth. Linda stepped forward. Where did you get that? I looked directly at her. The same place you made your biggest mistake. She stared at me. And for the first time that night, she looked afraid. But then Mark arrived home, and the moment he walked through the door, he said something that made me realize Linda wasn't the only person hiding a secret. Mark walked into the house and stopped when he saw everyone standing there. His eyes moved from his mother to the lawyer, then to my daughter. What is going on? He asked. My daughter looked at him with disbelief. You knew about this? Mark didn't answer. That silence told us more than words ever could. I watched my daughter's face change. The little hope she still had disappeared? Mark, she whispered, tell me you didn't know your mother was doing this. He looked away. That was the moment she realized she wasn't fighting one person. She was fighting a family that had already made a plan against her. Linda stepped forward quickly. Don't make this emotional. We are trying to protect our family. I looked at Mark. Protect your family? Or protect your secrets? The room went quiet. The lawyer looked uncomfortable and slowly closed his folder. Mark's expression changed. What are you talking about? I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small envelope. I'm talking about the money your mother transferred from your wife's account. My daughter looked shocked. My account? She turned toward Mark. What money? Mark tried to speak, but no words came out. Linda's face became serious. You don't know what you're doing. I looked at her. Actually, I know exactly what I'm doing. For months, I had noticed small things that didn't make sense. My daughter stopped buying things she needed. She started saying she couldn't afford simple expenses. She apologized every time she asked for help. At first, I thought Mark was controlling their finances. Then I found something else. A bank statement accidentally sent to my daughter's old email address. It showed money leaving her account and going into another account controlled by Linda. My daughter looked at Mark with tears in her eyes. How long? Mark stayed silent. How long have you known? Finally, he spoke. Mom said it was temporary. My daughter laughed, but there was no happiness in that laugh. Temporary? You let your mother take my money and didn't tell me? Linda suddenly changed her attitude. You're being dramatic. Everything I did was for this family. I stepped closer. No, you did it because you thought nobody would challenge you. Linda looked at me with anger. You still don't understand. People like you don't win against people with power. I almost smiled, because she still thought power was about money, lawyers, and fake documents. She didn't know what I had found the night before. While checking old records, I discovered something even bigger than the stolen money. A document with Linda's signature. A document that could destroy everything she had built. But I wasn't ready to show it yet, because I needed to know one thing first. How many people were involved in hurting my daughter? The next morning, I made one phone call to someone Linda never expected me to contact. And when that person answered, the first words they said were, Are you finally ready to expose what she did? I froze when I heard those words. Are you finally ready to expose what she did? The voice on the other end belonged to someone I never expected to hear from again. It was Linda's former business partner, Rachel. Years ago, Rachel and Linda had built a small company together. Everyone thought they were close friends, almost like sisters. But one day, Rachel disappeared from the business without any explanation. Linda told everyone that Rachel had made mistakes and ruined everything. But now I knew there was another side to that story. "Rachel," I said quietly, "how much do you know?" There was a long pause. Then she replied, "Enough to know your daughter isn't the first person Linda has destroyed." I looked through the window at my daughter sitting on the couch. She looked exhausted, but for the first time in months, she wasn't alone. "Tell me everything," I said. Rachel took a deep breath. "Linda has always been good at one thing. She makes people look guilty before they can defend themselves. She did it to me. She did it to employees. And now she's doing it to your daughter." My grip tightened around the phone. "What proof do you have?" "I have emails, financial records, and messages." But I was afraid to use them. Afraid of what? Her answer was quiet. "Because Linda doesn't just attack people. She ruins their lives." Those words stayed with me, because I finally understood why so many people stayed silent. Linda didn't win because she was always right. She won because people were afraid of what she would do next. When I returned to the house, my daughter immediately stood up. "Dad, what happened?" I looked at her. "I found someone who can help us prove everything." Before she could respond, Mark walked into the room. His face was different now. The confidence he had earlier was gone. "I need to talk to you," he said. My daughter looked at him coldly. "About what? Another lie?" Mark swallowed hard. "No, about my mother." Everyone became silent. He sat down and looked at the floor. "I knew she was taking money from your account, but I didn't know how far she would go." My daughter's eyes filled with tears. "You watched it happen." "I was scared," he whispered. That answer hurt her more than anger would have, because fear was the reason he abandoned her when she needed him most. Then Mark said something that changed the entire situation. "There's something else you need to know." I looked at him carefully. "What?" He reached into his pocket and placed a small black device on the table. "I recorded my mother talking about the plan." My daughter stared at it. "Why?" Mark looked ashamed. "Because when I realized she was trying to make you look crazy, I knew I had gone too far. I just didn't know how to stop her." I picked up the device. For the first time, Linda's perfect story had a crack. But when we played the recording, we heard something none of us expected. Linda wasn't just trying to trap my daughter. She had a bigger plan. A plan that involved taking something much more valuable than money. I pressed play on the recording, and Linda's voice filled the room. "I don't care what happens to her. Once the house is transferred, she won't have anything left. She have no choice but to stay quiet." My daughter covered her mouth in shock. The room went completely silent. The house, that was her real target. Linda wasn't trying to save a marriage. She wasn't protecting a family. She had been slowly pushing my daughter into a corner so she could take control of the property that my daughter had inherited from her grandfather. The same grandfather who had worked his entire life to leave something behind for his family. Linda wanted to steal the last thing he gave my daughter. But this time she made one mistake. She underestimated us. Over the next few weeks, everything changed. Rachel gave us the documents she had saved for years. The bank records, the hidden transfers, the fake reports, and the messages showing Linda's manipulation. A lawyer reviewed everything and confirmed what we already knew. Linda had created a fake story to make my daughter look unstable while secretly moving money and preparing legal papers to take control of the house. The same woman who always said, "No one fights me and wins," was finally facing someone who refused to back down. When the case reached court, Linda walked in with the same confidence she had that night. She smiled at me. "You really thought you could defeat me?" I looked at her calmly. "No, I knew the truth would defeat you." For the first time, Linda had no answer. One by one, the evidence was presented. The recordings, the financial records, the messages, the false accusations. Every lie she had built for years started falling apart. The judge ruled in my daughter's favor. Linda lost control of the house. The money she had taken was ordered to be returned, and her reputation was destroyed when everyone finally learned what she had done. But the biggest victory wasn't seeing Linda lose. It was seeing my daughter find herself again. Months later, she stood in her own home, opening the windows and letting fresh air fill the rooms. She looked at me and smiled. "Dad, I thought I had lost everything that night." I smiled back. "No, sweetheart. That night was when you finally stopped being alone." She hugged me tightly, and I realized something. Linda thought revenge meant hurting her the way she hurt us. But she was wrong. The real revenge was watching her lose the power she abused. It was seeing my daughter walk away stronger than before. And it was knowing that the woman who once tried to trap her had failed because she forgot one important thing. A person can control lies for a while, but they can never control the truth forever.